And welcome to the QCast. This is season 3, episode 19. And my hope is that before you watch football today, maybe while you watch football, after you watch football, it's always a good time to talk Division 3 basketball. And I'm excited about this episode of the QCast, a guest that I've been meaning to get on here for quite a bit. He's done so much at so many levels, especially in Division 3, and that is Eric Bridgeland, the very talented head coach of the Redlands Bulldogs. And Eric, we were just kind of joking around a little bit before we went on the air that obviously I'm a huge Illinois Wesleyan guy, and there's a little history here, right? So if we go
There
back
he
to
is.
that Puget Sound team, our guys got together 2 times that year. When you were at Whitman, you were ranked number 1. We played at Cal Lutheran, I
Big
believe,
time
right?
game, boy. It's
That
a
was a
big
big
time
time
game.
game. We had Brady Rose on that team, and you guys got the better of us in that one at the buzzer. But I've been really meaning to get you on the show because your career is fascinating. But first, let me just kind of pause and check in on your squad. You're sitting here right now at 14-5, 8-2 in the league. Tough loss last night, tough road game at Cal Lutheran. Talk a little bit about kind of where you're sitting right now on the season, if you would.
It's funny. The way we approach stuff is having fun, right? You got to have fun. And that's our whole center. That's our core of what we're doing. We're super close. Love our guys. We have the most amazing guys. And they're just a joy to be around. And whatever happens to us is a positive thing, and so, I mean, this is our first regular year on Redlands campus.
Right.
I mean, it's weird just to get the lay of the land, and just how things work, like when the finals are and when the fall break is and all that stuff. But we're just growing. We're having a phenomenal season. We had purposely scheduled as tough a games as we can get. East Texas Baptist, we knew would be good.
Yeah. Yep.
And that was quite a battle out there. We made it one late, and obviously Mary Hardin Baylor's a beast. And playing Lake Forest and losing that game at home was critical for us in our growth. So thankful for that loss. And then and now we're right in the thick of a great conference run.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so exciting. There's no negative to the deal. Cal Lou got us last night, and Russell White's a great friend of mine, their coach. He's an excellent coach, so we're just learning and evolving, and excited to be where we're at. A whole lot more games to play, whole lot more fun to have, I think, is the way to look at it.
That game last night, you were up 5. I was watching it. You were up 5 with 7:59 to go in the first half, and then you have one of these just ridiculous runs put on you, like crazy run. I think I have it as 23-0. I think it was 29-24. You're up, and I think you were down 47-29.
Yeah, we're stuck on that number there for a while. Yeah,
stuck. I mean, every crazy thing that could happen was happening. It was almost you had the laugh kind of moment because like a guy's laying it up, steal, layup, rebound, layup. What I wanted to ask you about that is I've heard you in some other interviews. I think it's really cool and really fascinating to say that, you guys you're not outcome driven, and the final score is an outcome. You're not outcome driven. You're more about kind of the steps along the way. So talk about that. I mean, to me, that's the bedrock of your coaching philosophy. And I really find that awesome and cool. Talk through that.
Well, if I mean, this is how they say the greatest failures are the greatest gifts. And this was 8 or 9 years ago, maybe. We had just lost. I was at Whitman then, and we had just lost on the road. Got upset in the first round of the conference playoff, and we had finished, not like Whitman had one winning season in 20 years, right? Like when we got there. So we had finished in second place to Whitworth for 6 straight years.
Right.
Now think about that. I mean, like from the outside, oh, hey, you're doing great. But as a competitor, you go, you're about ready to put your face through a mirror, right? So I was so down and so just like floor level down. And I walked we're on the road, we lost. And I walked up to the 3rd floor of my hotel room, walked in, turned on the light. I'm just looking in the mirror. and just me and, the tie's off, I think, but my jacket's on, everything else, right? And I just looked in the mirror and I said, I forgive you. And because maybe, I'm just not good enough to like get us there. Maybe I'm not just, but I know I can't be trying any harder than like what I'm trying. So if we never make the playoffs, if we never make the tournament, if we never win the conference, I'm okay with that. And it was so funny because the next morning we had exit interviews, way too soon, emotional. Our best player, I said, hey, this is like 12 hours later. What the heck happened out there? And he got real uncomfortable, and he never makes eye contact, really, right? Socially awkward. And he looked me dead in the eyes and he said, I just think everybody wants you to believe in them. Whoa, daddy. I didn't have to ask him, So from that point, like that 12-hour stretch or whatever it was, I went completely as a leader and a mentor to detach from outcome. And no matter what, every single one of our guys is going to know throughout the course of their span of their entire life that I believe in them and I'm their guy, period. Right. And now, like Puget Sound and Whitman, we had always finished in first or second every single year after 2 recruiting classes. And our guys were going on to do things beyond basketball that were phenomenal. So who's to say that I was doing something wrong? But I took a whole nother path, and I just left that and went in a whole nother direction, not knowing what was going to happen, right? But all of a sudden, we couldn't be beat. I mean, believing in our guys, having fun. Hey, we'll do our best. We'll keep learning. And all of a sudden, Whitman's doing this, and it's we just can't be beat. We have a 67-game winning streak, all this stuff. And so that greatest failure what just shaped and really evolved me to a whole nother level of being the mentor than what I was before, being outcome based and win loss and fire and brimstone. So it was a great learning moment for me and an evolution. So we've kept that front and center because that's how it should be,
Right.
So believing in our guys, having as much fun as we can have. Even last night, I told them after the game, we'll be all right. We'll be all right. We'll figure it out. It all happens for a reason, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Such a refreshing approach. And I think another thing that you've said the word a couple times already that I've heard you talk about is fun. Like I want my guys, one of our philosophies, I want them to have fun. I want to have fun in a group setting. I want them to be successful in a group setting. And sometimes I don't hear the word fun enough. Those of us that are hosting basketball podcasts and those of us coaching basketball, we all got into this at some point because the game was fun, right? And sometimes we don't hear that a lot. Talk about that part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and like we talk about it, we'll have very high level, intense practices, super positive, right? It has to be 95 to 5% positive to critical and making things better. But basketball is a fun game. Even in our practices, we have very few drills, and we make everything a contest or a game. Our 10-year-olds really taught me something, because whenever I try to get him to do a drill, he wants no part of it. If I like make it a game, oh my gosh, he'll play for hours.
Right.
And we're just big kids, right? These kids want to play games. So we make everything contests and games and have fun. And hey, we'll go out there and soak up this game. And how much fun we can have, that's where it's at. Whatever. But that's how it should be. And all of a sudden you're loose, there's no tightness. Hey, we'll figure it out.
Right.
That's a powerful weapon. Or at least it's been, and maybe it's a good mix with that and with how I am anyway. Or that combination is the best product that I've been able to give our guys.
Yeah, it's very, I think, unique and refreshing to hear that approach, and it comes across. It comes across when you watch your team play. It did at past stops, and it certainly does now. I want to talk about past stops a little bit, because your journey is so cool. You've literally coached at every level, just about, right? I mean, and the way I have this is that you've coached at 10 schools. I think you've had 5 head jobs. I've got the path. I'm probably missing something. Was the first job, was it West Florida? Is that the first job?
I was a volunteer at West Florida under Don Hogan and John Likens. Yeah.
West Florida, Stephen F. Austin, Colorado School of Mines, Lewis and Clark, Cal State Bakersfield.
Yeah.
Part of some good teams there.
Yeah.
First head job, I believe the Banana Slugs. Is that?
Can I tell you this? I got hired on October 13th, and I'm originally from Rockford, Illinois, and so we inherited a schedule that had us going to play Rockford, Illinois, Augustana, and Illinois Wesleyan.
Wow.
And so I remember, like we inherited a 4-21 team that had graduated 4 of their 5 starters or whatever. I don't know Division III at that point in time. I know Division I and II, and I knew a little bit from Lewis and Clark, but and so we went to go play Illinois Wesleyan, and in the Shirk Center, right? I mean, and it's all white, it's on TV, and these guys came out of the locker room. I mean, they're 6'10" and 6'9", and I'm like, we're playing these guys. I mean, and like that was the year after they won the national championship. So
right.
Who was the guard that they had in
right. Corey Kuhn, and yeah, he was back. Yeah.
They could have beat us by 1,500, but they beat us by 15, right? And I just remembered we can't even play with these guys. And then we went to Augustana the next night, and they beat us by 40. And I'm like, okay, how do we compete with these guys? So that was my first, open,
right.
like eyes open, like, okay, this is serious Division III title contenders, obviously, right? And like the whole thing. So immediately I'm like, we need to create a style of play in the West that'll give us a chance nationally, because we can't match up with the talent that they have at that point in time, right?
Right. Right.
So, my thought was, how can we get the game going up and down to where they can only play maybe one big, not 2 of them?
Right.
Because we can't really get quality bigs in the West, or like it's rare. So like that was my first thought, is we have to have a style of play that can give us an advantage. And that's why, because Augustana and Illinois Wesleyan were, oh my gosh.
That's cool. I completely forgot that UC Santa Cruz team, that you were the head coach of that team, because I was at that game, and I don't know why I remember what really? I remember. I was at the game, and I know that a guy named Jerry Happ tore his ACL in that game, and he was done for the season. I don't know why. I wish I could not remember all these things, Eric, in my head, but I do. I just didn't realize you were the coach of that team. That's super cool. You go then to Puget Sound, and you're there for 5 years, and boy, what a program you built there. So I traveled out to Westmont College there in Santa Barbara, right? Not a tough thing to decide to do, go to Santa Barbara to watch a couple basketball games. And I remember that, like, you signed up to go to that tournament out there because you wanted to play Illinois Wesleyan.
We would not have gone if we weren't able to play you guys. That was
I remember that. I remember that. And I don't remember what the rankings were at the time, but you knew you had a great team, and you needed people to, you wanted to test yourself. And
I thought you guys would be number 1 in the country, is what I thought.
Yeah, and we were close, and
you were.
Yeah, I think we were number 1. And that game, I think we may have won it by 15 or 20 or something.
Yep.
But then we meet in the Elite 8, and I think we were up maybe 10 or something. But I mean, down the stretch, we're gassed. Our guys are gassed. We had that Douchis, Emilianovic, Freeman team. I believe it got cut to 1, and Adam Douchis hits a 3. That's that Puget Sound program you built, national power. It had to feel good to take your system, and we're going to get into your system, to take that and to create a national power at Puget Sound. What were those years like there?
I got to tell you, I mean, at Santa Cruz, we were 500 both years, or like a game under 500. And then the first 2 years at Puget Sound, we were also a game under 500. And so, like, I mean, I think one of my greatest strengths is I don't know a thing, and that's how I look at it. Like, our players can teach me, anyone. I can just learn. I try real hard, and so and the only reason why I'm bringing that up is because I'm like, okay, I just want to get a season over 500. So I've been head coach for 4 years, and I haven't even won more than we've lost, right? So I'm like, and so all of a sudden, we started to grow, and we had returners, and we had a style of play, and we beat Wisconsin. Oh gosh, River Falls, and they had the 6'7" kid that was an All-American and stuff, and we beat them like 102 to 100 or something, and that kind of gave us hope in that third year there. And then of course we ran into Stevens Point in their back-to-back years, and they knocked us out in the Sweet 16.
Yeah,
and they beat everybody, right? And then of course Illinois Wesleyan. But those teams, I remember early on a Sunday morning going, okay, it was the year that the women would host. You know how they flip flop, right?
yep,
And so I saw that the Stevens Point women were number one in the region, and so if they had the host, the NCAA had no choice but for Puget Sound to host.
right.
And I'm going, there's no way, they have to make it so. And then I saw it in a little asterisk that we were the host, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the first West Coast host, right?
Right.
Sectional and stuff, and then Stevens Point came in and just waxed us, right? But those were fun years. It was just possible, it was exciting. We were averaging 1,200 a game, and of course they would never get fans, in the West.
Right.
So it was just cool to build it. I love building stuff, and that was one of the most fun things to build.
It was a incredible program, and I want to talk about kind of the consistency from place to place. But you leave Puget Sound, and I believe you went then to Pepperdine.
Yep.
Is that correct? And again, I don't know if this is just something in my head or not, but when Illinois Wesleyan came like a couple of years after the year we were just talking about to play in Southern California, I believe that we got hooked up and you let us practice in the Pepperdine gym. I believe
I remember that.
Yeah, I think we played like Occidental and CMS, and we practiced at Pepperdine because one of our assistant coaches contacted you, and you were there. Were you at Pepperdine for 2 years? Is that correct?
Yep. I was there as the recruiting coordinator with Vance Wahlberg.
Right. 2 years. And then you go to Whitman, and you were at Whitman for 12 years. And I mean, Eric, the run at Whitman was absolutely unbelievable, right? I mean, what you guys did there, I think, did you go 3 seasons undefeated in the Northwest Conference? Do I have that right?
I think so. I mean, it was a 67 game winning streak, or conference win streak. But yeah, it was quite a run.
You let your Whitman's all-time wins leader. You won 4 NWC titles. You went to the 4 Sweet 16s, 2 Elite 8s. You were in the 2017 Final Four. Believe you played Babson in the national semi, right? Got beat by Babson in a really good game. A good game that you led at half, and I think you had a decent lead well into the second before they made a little run. What was that? Thinking back to your Final Four team and the experience in Salem that year, what was that like?
Well, let me just say, like, I thought we scheduled too hard that year, too difficult. We had Worcester, we had Marietta on a neutral,
right?
And I thought that our best team would be a couple years after that. And I'm like, maybe we scheduled too hard, and all of a sudden we were on a 1-game schedule, right? Having fun, and all of a sudden we were just close win. And I remember I could beat Hardin Simmons in Marietta, and Marietta got upset by Rochester. Thank goodness, because we had no hope in beating Marietta, especially we already beaten them once. No hope to beat them. Right. I mean, that was a zoo. And so they beat them, and then we ended up going, and it was like, we're going to the Final Four from Whitman College. I mean, it was crazy. It was like a surreal feeling. It was funny. Our son had his 5th birthday, and so we decided to keep the team out there. And in retrospect, I would have brought the team back just because of routine. But I flew back on the private jet for his birthday and then flew back out, right?
Wow.
And when I got back, Tim Howell, who was the National Player of the Year, he and I were in the hospital the day before the game, the entire game, or the entire day. He was like dehydrated. The doctors got like the IVs in him, everything else, and you're like, okay, please, just be able to play.
Right.
And then we had a great game with Babson, but I feel like we were out of sorts. I would have, had I do it all over again, we would have flown back, come back, been in routine. If Tim would have been said, Babson obviously was a national champion, right? But the city, boy, what an amazing Salem. I mean,
Yeah, that
what
was
a
a great
great
place.
site. Oh my gosh. From the host to, I mean, just the whole setup was phenomenal. They just made us feel like champions. Each team there was what an experience for our guys. That was amazing.
Salem, awesome place. We're now in Fort Wayne. I know I personally really miss Fort Wayne does a great job, and I love it as a site. I miss Salem though. There was some charm about it that was just really special, and heck, maybe we end up back there. So you're at Whitman, and you have this powerhouse that you've built, a team that is a top 25 voter. My ballot would always start by writing down some names. Like, I got to get these in. Whitman, just put them in. We got to figure out if we're going to put them 5 or 7, whatever. I was really shocked when I heard, and I can't remember where I saw it, Twitter or wherever. I was shocked to learn that you were leaving just because you had this program, you're locked in, you're rolling. Talk about the decision, and I think I understand a little better now, or a lot better now. Talk about why you decided to leave Whitman and head to Redlands.
Well, everybody's different. I like to build things. And there might have been opportunities to go to Whitworth. There might have been opportunity, to take other jobs that were made jobs, I call them, like they've already done it. They've already been there. I have no interest in those things. What gets me excited is doing things that I haven't been done before, or like trying to, right? And like trying to build something. And so Whitman, we had an amazing class. Had we would have stayed. Oh my gosh. But we had 2 kids, Southern Cal, a wife's from California. Redlands is a sleeping giant, as well as the conference, I might add.
Yeah, yeah.
The last 6-7 years, they've been able to recruit off campus for the first time, right?
Right.
So you're seeing the teams get better and better and better. And like, people sleep on the SCIAC, in my opinion, because their best teams usually came up to Walla Walla and we knocked them out.
Right. You get in that West Coast pod thing where you just all beat each other.
Right.
Yeah.
So had they not played us on our home floor, I mean, like, you saw Pomona Pitzer go and beat Emory at Emory, going into, so like they've been good.
Absolutely.
So in terms of winning the whole thing, I don't care about records. Selfishly for me, I want to try to win the whole thing. That's invigorating. That gets me excited. So Whitman, I thought there were limitations. Like, we get sent out to Hamilton, right down the street from Williams. We're on a commercial flight. We're just a shell of our team out there, and it's like, how can this be? Like, in terms of easier bracketing, or because we're isolated, or whatever the deal is. I felt like we could get a better player, and have an easier routes if we were down here. And you go, okay, well, what wins in just a basketball sense, right? You got to get guys in school. Well, Whitman, you couldn't get anybody in school.
Right.
I mean, it was an incredibly difficult job. And then you got to fund them, so the differences between Redlands and Whitman are a country mile. I mean, it's so much easier to get better players here, right? And fund them than it ever was at Whitman. So, like, that's the number one thing. Never mind SoCal and the palm trees and the 80-degree weather and Walla Walla is wine country, right? And I love the people there. I loved our time there. But at the same time, this is an easier vehicle for this race. So I'm super excited. And I'm loving our team right now. We're going to return almost everybody for next year, going to Ryan's deal in the tip-off thing at Wittenberg or Marietta, wherever it is, next year. And like, it's coming. No, I don't know if we're going to do it, but the level of player that we're getting, we could never have gotten at Whitman. So it's exciting. And to build it again or try,
And,
yeah,
hey,
long answer. Sorry.
My guys are going to be there in Springfield, Ohio too. So, I don't know what Ryan is going to do on pairings, but you never know. There could be another Eric Bridgeland versus Illinois Wesleyan game coming.
We're already doing that. We're going to play. Coach Rose and I already talked about it. We're going to play at Cal Lou next year.
See, I knew
So
we were going to Southern California. I just didn't know it was to play you. Oh, now
it
I'm
has to be. It's our time. So I am purposely asked Ryan, can we play somebody else besides Illinois Wesleyan, because we're going to play them prior to
I
Christmas in
had no
Calhoun.
idea. I hadn't even gotten
Let's
to the
go,
point
Bob.
where I didn't even get to the point where I asked Ron, like, so who are we playing in California? But now this is extra cool. And to what you said earlier about like, can we make them only play one big? What's interesting about this, and I want to get into your coaching style, and this probably is a good transition. If we were healthy this year, we have a 6'8" 3-man that is a legit 3-man who's been hurt. But like next year, if we were healthy, we could start a 6'8" 3, a 6'10" 4, and a 6'9" 5. Now against you guys though, and these guys all legitimately play those positions, but against your style, I'm not sure we can put those guys on the floor together. And that's kind of one of the things you said earlier that you tried to do in trying to match up with some of these Wisconsin and Illinois looking teams is, hey, they have a bunch of 6'8" guys, but I'm not sure if playing us, they can put them all on the floor. Am I saying that right?
I know one thing: if we walked the ball up, we would have no shot at
Right.
winning the whole thing. Right? Like
Right.
I've seen for 25 years, I've been in the West. So I've seen the very best of the teams. Whitworth had a team that had 2 Division I transfers, 2 other NEI guys, a Big Sky freshman of the year, all this stuff. And they lost at Worcester in the Elite Eight by walking the ball up. The talent level is not good enough to walk the ball up and beat those teams to go
Right.
win the whole thing. It's just not yet. So you just got to do something differently or tweak something to give yourself an advantage from my point of view. Right.
And yeah, and even in our league right now, we have like North Park that is tied for Wheaton with the lead, tied with Wheaton for the lead. And they're playing a completely different style where they turn you over 21 times a game and they're guard driven and they're dribble drive. And it's a similar thing. It's like we really can't match up with a team like that the way that we're constructed. So let's get into that a little bit. I went back and looked at your final season box score for Whitman 2017, for Puget Sound 2006, and for Redlands this year. And admittedly, Redlands now isn't where you'll have Redlands in 2 or 3 or even 1 more year. Like it's still a building process. The thing that jumps out, first of all, Whitman, 92 points a game. Puget Sound, 96 points a game. Redlands, 88 points a game. So first, I want to talk about the offensive side of the ball, because having seen your teams in Puget Sound, Whitman, and now Redlands, to your credit, Eric, like I think the coolest thing from an outsider perspective is when a coach comes to new places and his teams look exactly the same. To me, that is system, that is coaching. But your teams, and I'm going to try to describe your offense as a guy that's not really an X's and O's guy, but you always spread the floor. There's a lot of like one-on-one, just we're in attack mode. We're coming down the hill at you. There's a lot of tough decisions that the defenders have to make on ball screens, and your offenses are just really in attack mode. And there's a lot of kickouts to guys. You always seem to have 5 guys on the floor that can shoot it. How would you describe your offense that leads to you scoring, 92 points a game everywhere you go?
Well, players, I mean, like from a coaching perspective, I think coaches would say, okay, how are you going to attack and get the ball to the paint, right? I mean, you got to get the ball to the paint. So some will do it through the post, some will do it through cuts and motion. We do it off the dribble, and we space the floor, and and one of the things that I think people overlook, or if they don't really look deep enough, is those teams also got to the line an incredible amount.
Yeah.
I think we led the whole country at every level 2 out of the 3 years of Whitman. We had 30 free throw attempts a game, right, 28. Right. So yeah, our way of doing that is by the dribble and the fast break. And the other thing too is what's going to draw kids to your program in terms of recruiting. And from my perspective, it's they want to score. I mean, they want an up and down game. You want to outscore them. They don't want to play defense.
Right.
I mean, we have a running joke, like with our staff like coaches coach how they play, and like look at Matt Painter, at Purdue. He plays two bigs because he was a big, right? I mean, and I shot a lot of threes and didn't guard anybody, and that's exactly what you're watching us out there, right? So it's that's how kids want to play. So to give them freedom to be able to make mistakes in space, work on developing their offensive games, believe in them, of course, number one, and outscore who you're playing.
Right.
I mean, that's how the kid or today's kid wants to play, I believe, and so that helps recruiting, right?
And to that point, you talk about like your teams have, because of the pace. At Whitman gave up 76 a game. At Puget Sound gave up 84 a game. You're currently giving up 76 a game.
Yeah.
But it's because you've got that pace going, and also the way you play. You're going to give some easy looks to other opponents. You're not playing the Grinnell system or anything like that. But there's going to be times when your opponents have a wide open, 2 passes for a layup situation. Your opponent field goal percentage is probably never going to lead the nation kind of team.
No.
But if we look at the other side of the ball, here's another cool stat that I found to be really key for what you guys do. At Whitman, your opponents had 435 assists to 699 turnovers. That's a 0.62 assist to turnover ratio, which is elite. At Puget Sound, it was even better that season. 437 assists to 739 turnovers. That's 0.59. And currently at Redlands, you're at a 0.83. So you're not where you were there, but you're still a team that turns the opponent over a crazy amount. When you guys really do a great job, make or miss, of pressuring the ball up and down the floor. Can you talk about, you joked about like kids don't want to play defense. You guys have always played great defense. What is your defensive philosophy?
Well, I think it's important. It's important to talk about possessions first. Like, we keep track of offensive rebounding. Who has more offensive rebounds in the game? Not the overall rebounding thing. Don't care, but like if they have 15, you have 8, whatever that is, right? They would be +7 on you, right? So they have 7 more shots from those, right. And turnovers as well. If they turn it over 20 times and you turn it over 10, that's another 10 shots that you get, right?
Right.
So we're averaging 12 more shots a game right now.
Right.
So if you looked across the country at any level of basketball, men or women, you will find from first to last place a higher possession differential, in the first place team, all the way down to the worst in the last place team. So you might have an outlier, like Claremont, for instance, right? Like they're holding teams to 10% less field goal percentage. Well, there's going to be those outliers, right? But for the most part, who is getting more shots?
Right.
So that's always been what we've been thinking about.
And at Whitman, that 2017 team, you averaged 10 more field goal attempts per game than your opponent. Right. The Puget Sound year, you averaged 10. And right now, I think you're right at 10, which is, I think that's the simplicity of it is, if we're going to be able to have more possessions and shoot the ball more, the math starts to get it starts to swing in your favor, doesn't it?
Yeah. The other thing to consider too is like what makes a happy team. Obviously having fun, being super, super close and playing for each other, right? That's the foundation of every successful program. But then also kids playing. So if you're, if you're only playing 6 or 7 or 8 kids and we're playing 11 or 12,
right?
Over the course of time, we're going to wear you down probably, to where you're going to be gassed or, then at the same time, we're going to have a pretty happy team. Guys are, they're all getting a chance to play. And so all those things factor in, you were mentioning pace of play and giving up layups and stuff. I remember playing that River Falls team and back at Puget Sound, and we were down 20 in the first half. Right. But all of a sudden in the second half, they were throwing the ball all over the gym and they got tired and the pace completely, so it's Mike Dunlap, who was head coach of the Charlotte Bobcats for a while and at numerous Division I high majors, was one of my greatest mentors. And he said one time, who is stealing the other team's practice time?
Right.
So we're crazy detailed, but are you getting ready for us? Or
Right.
are we getting ready for you? Teams are getting ready for our style of play, and that's more difficult, I think, than what we're doing for them.
It's a great point, because the ultimate extreme of that would be Grinnell's system. You spend the whole 3 days before the game preparing for their system, and almost no time preparing for your own stuff, because your own stuff is out the window.
Right.
And to some degree, playing your system is kind of similar to that in a different way. You got to spend a lot of time. And to your point about River Falls, I remember in the game in Appleton, the Elite Eight game, Puget Sound, Illinois Wesleyan, we may have been up 15-13 at some point, but I mean, our guys were gassed down the stretch. And that's one of the huge advantages of the way you play, is it puts a lot of pressure on another team to play more guys than they would like to. Are you on pace? That's a weird question, but at Redlands, I mean, to be sitting at 14-5 here, and until last night you're tied for the league lead. Now you're just one out. I would have thought, hey, Bridgeland took the job. Let's look out for them in 4 years. You're contending right now. Did you expect to be here right now?
I don't ever expect anything. Like I said, I don't. We just try to get better, and I mean that sounds cliche, right? But like, I don't think. I just know that we have a plan, and it's a detailed plan, and I know we're deep, and we haven't had our 2 leading scorers now for 6 weeks. So like once we get those guys back, they're both guards that average mid-teens and shoot the three at 40% or better, right?
You said, what's the, so is it Chosen Amadi? Is that how I say it?
Chosen Amadi and Neil Owens.
So those guys, Amadi's missed like the last 3 or 4, and Neil Owens has been out for a while now. What's the status on them coming back, since you mentioned it?
Neil, we're hoping to have back next week. Chosen in about 10 days, probably.
Oh, that's huge. You'll have them for conference tournament time, right? That's huge.
Right. Yeah. So in a guard system, those guys are very, very important to what we're doing. And I'm so ecstatic for our guys, because they've done such a great job. And every team's got injury deals, right? This is just our own story. Everyone's got their own challenges. But for our guys have really, really stepped up. I'm so proud of them to be where we're at, 8-2. Without Neil, and then I chosen the last 3 or 4. I mean, that they're doing a great job. So I'm excited for each game and each practice, and we just keep evolving. We have a real shot, and like I said, we return the bulk of them next year,
right?
With another recruiting class. So I think it's just a matter of time if we just keep on having fun and being about them, right?
That's the cool thing, is you can already see that this is heading where Puget Sound got to, and where Whitman got to, and it seems like next year when I'm making that preseason ballot, that I'm going to be like, okay, Redlands, where do they fit? Because there's a kind of a progression happening. Let me ask about some of your guys, and we just mentioned a couple, but I'd like to talk about just a little bit. Chosen Amadi, he's a 6'2" sophomore. He got hurt in the CMS game back on the 18th, but he's your leading scorer right now. So he's averaging 15 points, 3 rebounds. Can you talk a little bit about what he brings to the floor for you?
He's an elite shooter. He's an elite leader is what he is. He's going to do so many positive things in our world. Like, he was a perfect fit for us, because he just does things. If you put Chosen in any group, that group's going to raise his level of performance. He's just a relationship driven. He's just a gift to our program. But he can really shoot it. He can really guard when he wants to. You know how that stuff goes. But in the games that we won, like when we beat St. Thomas out of Houston, who's whatever they are, 18-2, whatever.
Yeah, they're great.
Chosen had a big game there, and separates us that way and can create offense. Neil Owens is the one that people have forgotten about, because he's had the high ankle sprain and been out forever.
Talk about Neil. So Neil's a 6'1" junior, and he's averaging 12 points, 2 rebounds. Again, he's played limited time, but he's a stud too. Talk a little bit about Neil Owens.
He's our go-to, really. He defers, so it's like we can be in games, and he can have 8 points or 10 points or 12 points, but when we're in trouble, you'll see 20, 25, 30 from him. But he's just a blur in the open floor. He's a 40% 3-point shooter. So it'll be great to have him back. We were kind of joking last week. Mahomes has a high ankle sprain, and he's back in like 3 days practicing. Yeah, I'm like, Neil. So it'll be 6 weeks or whatever it is next week. So we're hoping to get him back, but they'll help.
Kyrie Armstead, 6'5" junior, 13.6 rebounds, 4 assists, kind of a stat stuffer. He's having to play a bigger role with those guys out. Talk a little bit about Kyrie.
Do you remember Austin Butler?
Yeah.
Yeah, Austin Butler won games. He was just one of those guys that you just put him out there and he's going to crush the stat line. And when the game's on the line, like whether it be Marietta, whether it be, he just won games. And
right.
That Kyrie is just like him. He can dominate a game intangibly. And he can even score. Austin never really scored a bunch.
Right.
He was just an alpha male that did everything else. He can go triple doubles and everything else. That's Kyrie. So Kyrie's got a chance even beyond Redlands to G League or those kinds of things.
Wow.
And so he's never been a ball handler, but he is for us. And so he's had some growing pains, which is what you would expect, but he's a special player. And if and when we're ever fortunate enough to get to that national level and play those giants, he'll be front and center with our group.
That's a great comparison because Butler was a phenomenal player. And if you looked at he was an All-American, and if you looked at his stat line, you're like, well, he doesn't score 1,000,000 points and he doesn't you just watched the game though and said that guy is unbelievable, right? Like he was just that kind of player. Wanted to ask you about a guy from years ago who I thought on your Puget Sound team was like, he was incredible. He was like a leader is the best word I have is that Chase Curtis. Do I have that right? Chase Curtis. Is it correct? Like he's a guy that you're looking for on this team, guys that have that level of just savvy and leadership. Talk a little bit about do you have that currently and how do you find that?
Chase was the greatest leader that I've ever coached. And he came to us like that. One of those deals where at Puget Sound, when he was from SoCal High School in Santa Cruz, we was right down the street from UC Santa Cruz.
Sure.
And I remember when I got the job, thinking, okay, if we just got him, everything would change.
Wow.
And so we got him and everything changed, right? Whitman, you had our best teams had 3, 4, 5 leaders that led, elite leaders that led in different ways. And together they were amazing. They graduated as the winningest D3 4 years in history, right? Those guys. And so we have that combination of those guys here. But they haven't done it yet. But boy, we've got 4 or 5 exceptional leaders that are figuring out together without the confidence, knowing that, hey, we've already done it.
Right.
So they're still learning as a group, but it's not just one guy. There's 4 or 5 guys that lead in different ways, that's exciting stuff,
It is.
Yeah.
And that's why I want to ask about that, is because it seemed like you have a guy like Chase Curtis on the floor. Boy, that just makes winning a lot easier. And I was curious if you felt like you were getting some of those now, and it sounds like you do. They just need to get in games like they're going to play in the conference tournament where the game's tied with 2 minutes to go. And now we see what happens, right? Couple more topics. I appreciate all your time. Just a couple more things. Because of all of your jobs that you've had in coaching, I think you're maybe the best guest I've ever had to ask this question to. And it's similar to when I asked Glenn Miller at St. Joseph of Connecticut, this question, just advice for aspiring coaches, because Coach Miller has been to so many cool places UConn, and then he's been at the D3 level, back to Division I. Now he's back in D3 at the top. But you have a unique perspective because, again, I mentioned you've been to 10 schools, you've had 5 head jobs, and that does not happen easily. Nobody hands you an assistant job, let alone a head job. So there's going to be people that tune into this, Eric, that are people that want to be coaches. Maybe they're seniors right now and they want to know how to get into this thing. They really want to be a coach. It's in their blood. What are some things that you would tell aspiring young coaches?
We have an exceptional assistant coach, and we've been so blessed. Matt Airy went to Aurora. Michael Lenahan, that's at Bard, doing an amazing job at Bard right now. Corey Coombe for us, like he played at Lewis and Clark. By the way, Bob Gaylord at Lewis and Clark is one of the most phenomenal coaches I've ever been around. They were in elite power at the NAIA level. So I worked for him and learned a ton. But like Corey actually called me and he wrote me a handwritten letter about how you break into the business, right? And then he drove out to Walla Walla to see me. Now I'm just saying those are three things that 99% of the people don't do. So like even Michael Lenahan, who was at UC Irvine at the time, I opened up my email, and you get emails all the time that are just like generalized, right? And the more detailed you are, the better you are. We all know that, right? So I had an email from him at 4:12 a.m. and it was so detailed on what we had accomplished at Whitman, and at that point in time, and it was like 4 paragraphs long, and it was detailed. And I'm like, okay, his aspirations can't be to end up at Whitman College, so he's sending these all across the country. Okay, who's doing that?
Right.
We got to get that guy over here, right? So many people, they'll text, they'll send a form letter. I mean, what are you doing? And we talk about this guy, or to our guys about this all the time. What are you doing to separate yourself in a positive way from the competition? And how detailed are you in that approach? So that's what I would say is get out there, meet people, get on their doorstep, go to practice, pick up the phone and call.
Right.
Be persistent, right? And handwritten letters, those things count. It takes more effort, but that'll separate you. Like I worked a ton of camps. I moved for 7 straight years as an assistant. 7 straight years. Packed my stuff in the car, drove. So there's a price to be paid, right? But if you're constantly doing things that will separate yourself from the pack in a positive way, good things are going to happen if you're a good person and you're, all the above, right? But how detailed are you in doing that? You can get more specific, maybe. I give a few examples, but that's where it's at. And like Corey, I'm like, this guy. So all of a sudden we have an opening. Yeah, Corey, come on, because he did those things that the rest didn't do. Those. Michael Lenahan moved from L.A. to Whitman for a year. I mean, he moved all the way up there because he wanted to be a head coach and everything else. And he moved down here. He made nothing, right? And then now he's a head coach at Bar. So it's like he sacrificed doing things and was crazy detailed, and he wanted it, right? You got to want it and do things to separate yourself,
Another thing that, again, as an outsider to the coaching world, but it seems to me like there is a lot of, you have to be willing to take significant risks in your profession. And what I mean by that is you leaving Puget Sound to go to Whitman, there were risks with that. When you left Whitman, you had this thing rolling. You were a national power. When you left there to go to Redlands, there was risk with that. All of these jobs that I look at people making decisions on in the coaching world, you have to be comfortable with kind of betting on yourself and taking risks. To talk through that side of it a little bit, if you would.
I think part of, in my example, part of my maturation, right, in my evolution was getting to the point where I hope you like what we're doing. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to care about our guys. I'm going to develop them. And if you like that, great. I mean, I hope you do. If you don't, then that's okay too, right? So like come into Redlands. Yeah. I mean, from the outside looking in, boy, you're leaving a made program now. And we were loaded coming back, the talent level and but I don't mind being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we'll ever get it done at Redlands, but I don't care about that. It's fun to try.
Right.
It's fun to try.
Yeah.
And to build stuff. So, I mean, that's the furthest thing from my mind. And if we never make it, just like that night when I was looking at the mirror, right? The worst night of my life, which is the greatest gift. Hey,
yeah,
I'm okay. I'm going to love you either way. We're going to do our best. And maybe I'm not good enough. I don't know. We're going to try. We're going to have fun.
That's really cool. I appreciate that's great perspective. I think people get a lot out of that. The last thing I want to ask you about, you're one of the few coaches that has been a head coach at in the island conferences of Division III, right? So you've had a couple stops in the Northwest Conference, which is an underrated league. Now you're in the SCIAC, which is an underrated league. And if you took those leagues and you put them in the middle of Illinois and Wisconsin, we'd be talking about both of them all the time, and yet here they are, they're way out there, and the games are late, and in the tournament you get this weird pod setup where you just all beat each other, and one team then gets flown out to play Platteville or something.
Yeah.
Can you talk about both of those leagues a little bit, and like what Division III fans should know about the Northwest Conference and the SCIAC?
10 years ago, the SCIAC, I think, you don't want to say laughing stock. I mean, I remember going with David Michaels to the D3 All-Star game. He was the first player from the West Coast to go.
Yeah.
And we went there, and there were multiple committee members there. And, I wasn't affiliated with the SCIAC at that point. And there were numerous comments just in a free talk, right? Just in talking about, oh, yeah, the SCIAC don't really care. They don't, that's changed. I will tell you, the coaching in the SCIAC is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Look at Pomona pitcher goes into WashU and wins, goes to Emory and wins. I mean, Coach Cat is an amazing coach. Scalmanini is as good as they get. Russell White, and Newhall at Occidental is phenomenal, by the way. I mean, there, and the list goes on and on and on. Doc at Caltech. So the coaching there, and like I mentioned earlier, I think that because they had to fly up to Walla Walla and play Whitman, the winningest program, right, on their home floor.
Right.
They get knocked out. No one ever, so it was like, who's the SCIAC? But they've been good for a little bit now. So it's really starting to come. The Northwest Conference, has always been Whitworth's conference, except for the few Whitman, runs there, and Puget Sound runs. So I don't know. There's a lot of parity up there right now.
Right.
Our conference right now is the top 3 or 4 teams in the SCIAC right now. They're beasts. And I only see it doing this.
Talk a little bit about that, because if you look at the league this year, like in the preseason poll, Pomona Pitzer, I think I may have had them 12, and they were like 14 in the preseason poll. They lost some games early, but I want to say they've won like 12 of 13, including a game at WashU. They're rolling right now.
Yeah, their only loss is to us. Right.
Right. And then CMS, and that was at your place. CMS has been ranked.
It was at Pomona Pitzer.
At Pomona Pitzer. Yeah. CMS has been ranked the last several weeks, and they've had a great year, and they knocked off Mary Hardin Baylor the night before you guys played them. So like you really have a great, you have a top 3 that can stack up with any top 3 in any league just about, right?
It would be a conversation. It would be a conversation. I mean, what the SCIAC's got to do is get more diligent about its scheduling. There's a culture within our conference to where we'll schedule 3 or 4 NAIs, maybe because it's
those
easy.
are killers.
Well, I mean, it's tough to get Division III games, right? You got to fundraise, you offer stuff. That's the first thing, is playing 25. Playing a full slate, right?
Yep.
And so we've got to do better as a conference there, I believe, just from a respect issue. But I mean, our top 3 teams. I mean, we've beaten St. Thomas, and they're good. We were right there with Mary Hardin Baylor too. So I'm aware of
one at WashU, right? Pomona won at WashU this year, and they're right now, as of today, they're the favorites in the UAA all of a sudden, right? So
I'm telling you, no, and those teams are exceptionally well coached, and they've got talent. So it's I'm excited for our conference.
Sure.
And it's not just us 3. Kalaloo's coming. It's going to be. I think we're just doing this right now.
Yeah.
I know that we're going to try to be better each year, and so I imagine that the rest of them are too. So we would have gotten in 3 last year, Bob.
I know.
If one of those teams would have lost to Kalaloo, or all of a sudden. We had Chapman and Claremont, right?
And Pomona did well last year. Pomona went to Elmhurst and led by 13 at halftime, right? So, and Elmhurst played in the national championship game. So,
I know it,
right?
Yeah. So, I'm super excited for our conference. It's exciting.
Scheduling's a big
Okay.
deal though. Like you said, kudos to how you've signed up to play in the Great Lakes Invitational. So you're going to get two unique good games there. So whether you play Calvin and Middlebury or whoever else, right? You're going to get two good games there. You've got Illinois Wesleyan coming there.
Williams,
Yeah.
Williams at Santa Cruz.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
great.
So no, but that's how you do it, right?
That's how you do it.
I mean, I don't care about winning games, but you got to go play those people to go, okay,
Yeah.
okay, this is how they look, and this is how we got to be. That's
Right.
invigorating. We could lose all those.
Yeah.
I don't know, but we'll know how good we have to be. That's
Yeah.
exciting. Oh my gosh.
That's great. That
Yeah,
kudos
we're
to
also
you for
playing
scheduling.
East Texas Baptist again at home. And so they're, I don't know if they're as strong, but you should see East Texas Baptist. They have a 6'8" 3-man too, by the way, and a
Oh,
6'10".
I was voting for them in the poll up
Jeez.
until like a week or two ago. They are out. I've watched them on
Oh,
video probably 5 times. They're
okay.
outstanding. They're great.
Yeah.
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 The tournament, since you're my source of Illinois Wesleyan scheduling. So is it a tournament at your place that we're playing you, or a one game?
I think you're playing Cal Lu, and then us, and we're playing it at Cal Lu. So it'll be a
Gotcha.
home game for Cal Lu, I believe. I could be wrong. And I know that we're playing Coach Rose and at Cal Lu.
Fun. That's
So
going to
I'm
be great.
super excited about that. Those are always battles. So much fun.
I'm verbally committed. I'm verbally committed.
You better be there.
I'm not going to miss it. I mean, if I'm not going to miss it. I haven't missed the Titan West Coast trip in a long time. So
Can I just tell you something? Like yourself, Pat, Dave, what you guys do for our level makes it so much fun. You know this. And like coaches say it all the time, but without what you're doing, I don't know, it would be 10% of what it is.
It's
You
fun.
make it fun for the student athletes. They're always checking in. It's a big deal. It really makes the experience. I'm so thankful.
Well, appreciate you saying that, because I think what all of us are trying to do is we're trying to make sure the Division III brand is what it deserves to be.
Right.
I think before all the social media stuff and what Pat created with d3hoops.com, everyone else could kind of control the narrative. And so people could tell a high school kid that he's too good for Division III. But now when you can get on here and share videos of Division III players that are way better than this high school kid being told he's too good for D3, or you can share success stories, or to me, it's just all about making sure that the right story is being told. And so I appreciate you saying that, because that's why we all do what we do.
No, it's night and day. We need you guys. You got to keep doing what you're doing, because the experience that you're giving all the student athletes at our level is phenomenal.
Appreciate that.
Gosh.
Appreciate that. And, I'll just leave you with this and then ask you to close us out with any final thoughts you have. But really, Eric, respect kind of your approach and your evolution. I think you're a coach that's pretty vulnerable in saying that, I used to kind of be this way, and I had to take literally a look in the mirror, and now I'm about fun and being more of a guide than a coach, and some of these cool things that, not being outcome driven. I think a really refreshing approach that people are going to enjoy hearing about here today, and really respect what you've done in building programs. You're a program builder. I can already see Redlands. There's a line that's going like this right now, and I'm excited to see a matchup against the Bulldogs with the Titans next year. Eric, what do you have to close us out on the QCast here today?
I'm just going to reiterate how you guys make our level. That cannot be understated. That's just, I don't even know how to, I can't even overstate it. So I'm so thankful, and our student athletes are, and I know I speak for everybody about that. So please don't stop what you're doing.
We won't.
And then two, I'm excited to represent Redlands. University of Redlands is a phenomenal place with phenomenal leadership. Our president, we have a new president that's insanely good. Like, I'm just hoping that she isn't leaving in like 3 years, No, but like our athletic director, dean of students, it's so much fun to be at a school that wins in other sports. That's never been the case. Puget Sound and Whitman, no one ever won. Like on the women's side, they did a little bit, but here, baseball wins. Football has won the conference 4 straight years. There's winners here. It's just fun to be a part of that, and I'm excited to help do our part to raise our program to where the rest of the programs here are. I just love the University of Redlands, and our family does too. And so, yeah, I just want to make sure I give a plug out. We're very fortunate to be where we are.
Yeah, and keep rolling. We'll be watching. I was watching that game last night. It was a tough one, but you regroup, you move on, and you'll be at it next time. Folks, that is Eric Bridgeland. He's the head coach of Redlands and is having a great season. And it's going to be great to watch the stretch run here for the Bulldogs. That is QCast Season 3, Episode 19. Appreciate everyone tuning into this. Eric, thank you so much for all of this time. Thank you.
Bob, you're the best. Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks, man.